if you're new here. Today I'm coming to you with a 2024 wrap-up and some stats. I'm trying out moving from Goodreads to Storygraph because I quite like the more information that you get out of Storygraph, and the fact that you can filter by mood or by genre or by all sorts of different things. You just get a bit more out of Storygraph. So so that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at both and telling you the interesting bits, or what I think might be the interesting bits. So, according to Goodreads, I read 197 books. Oh, good, we're the same on both. So, I read 197 books, 62,939 pages, for an average page count for a book of 319 pages. Is that right? Yeah, 319 pages, which I think is the same as 2023. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, 319 pages in 2023 as well. So my aim for this year is my average page count to be a little bit higher. Just a little bit. So my shortest book in 2024 was Snowglass Apples by Neil Gaiman, and my longest book was The Terror by Dan Simmons, and this was, I personally did not enjoy it a lot. I got through it, but it was just boring rich white guys doing boring rich white guys stuff. And then it switched into like an Inuit-based magical realism for like the last 2 chapters or something. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you could just have given us those 2 chapters and not the whole historical whatever. But it was my longest book at 936 pages. So, not to be sneezed at. So I'm not necessarily looking to increase my length of my longest book, just to increase my average book. Maybe read a few fewer, shorter, less length books. Do you know what I'm saying here? I'm not quite sure. So I read about 60% of my books were 300 to 500 in length, and then about a third of them were under 300. So, I mean, I can either push it up by reading more longer books or by reading fewer shorter. You understand how averages work. So, anyway, I read, that's what I read. According to Storygraph, my mood was mostly mysterious or adventurous. I think I worked out which book was like the epitome of all the books I read. But Rose House by Arkady Martin, Daughter of the Burning City, that came up in quite a few of my top moods. Darkwater Daughter by H.M. Long, that was fantastic. And I gather the sequel's out and I haven't read it yet. You'll be unsurprised to hear that my most read genre was fantasy, and my second most read genre was mystery, and my third most read was LGBTQIA+, which I mostly can't be bothered with a book if it's got no queer rep. Like, it just feels so unrealistic to me if everyone's like, yeah, of course I'm straight and my friends are straight and everyone's straight and isn't it nice to be straight. Like, it just feels so false and unnecessary to kind of shoehorn that much straightness into a book. So I usually don't bother finishing books like that. Like, yeah, we get it, you're straight, you don't need to keep pushing it down the throats. But anyway, I did. So it's unsurprising that came up high on my list of genres. Because to me, it's just like a book. I read books with words in and some with pictures in. Amazing. But yeah, of my 197 books, 76 were fantasy and 46 were mystery. And I would tell you that my favourite genre is science fiction, but only 25 are science fiction. So I guess I need to read more science fiction. For children's books, a total of 22. So I sometimes think, oh, well, yeah, of course I read a lot of books because I read a lot of children's books, but actually it's not true. I don't actually read that much children's books as a percentage of my overall books. And for graphic novels, I read 9 graphic novels, manga. So again, that's something I'd quite like to read a little bit more of. But there's plenty more for me to investigate until we go down that path. My most read authors were Ellie Griffiths and Donna Andrews at the top. That makes sense because these are mystery authors whose series I've been reading. I'm caught up with Donna Andrews. I think I'm not quite. I've finished one of Ellie Griffiths' series, but I've got some more to finish there. And after that, Abby Jimenez, who is a new to me author this year. I've sort of started reading more romance and less history. And Abby Jimenez, I've just loved. And mostly I've kept a fairly similar, so they track number of pages and number of books separately. So mostly my lines are following each other. So I've kept pretty much the same average number of pages, with a bump in April of more pages compared to books, like higher number of pages compared to books, more big books. In July, I read more short books, and in September, I read more long books, which is weird because those are the Aurelian months. I know August was an Aurelian month this year, but that's also more pages. So it looks like I read longer books during Aurelian, even though I'm trying to read more of them, than during the rest of the year when I'm just like not particularly, like sometimes I'm reading for a readathon and maybe I'm reading short books for that. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be that I read shorter books when I'm reading a readathon, which does surprise me. My average rating was 4.11. This is because I normally, until about my birthday this year, I basically only rated when I really loved a book. So I disproportionately vote 5 stars, and I did, in fact, 33 of my ratings were a 5-star book. So that's not that surprising to me. That's quite a lot of books, so I'm not going to read them all out. You've had my best books. And my lowest rating was a 1, which was Every Sky a Grave by Jay Posey. This is a sort of sci-fi retelling of the life of St. Paul. It was just so preachy and dire. Oh, I hated it. I really hated it. So yeah, that's my disc recommendation. I've talked a lot about what books I did like. I'm going to switch you around and look through my Goodreads just in case anything pops out. So as I say, my shortest book was The Gamer, my longest book was The Terror, average 319. Most shelved was Fourth Wing, no surprise there. Least shelved was Dreams of Death, which, I mean, this series is a really lovely series if you want a kind of cross between I was going to say cozy thriller, but no, that doesn't make sense, does it? If you want a thriller, but one where you have characters that you really like, and an authorial, a really lovely, comfortable authorial voice, that's a good place to be. My highest rated of other books was Isadora Moon. My daughter decided she's too old for Isadora Moon audiobook, so I had to read this by myself. My first review of the year was Mr. Magic by Kirsten White, which was I'm just going to read it out. This book is a literary version of the 3 mum hug shirts for people who've been in cults or otherwise suffer from religious and cultural trauma. There's just so much in this book, and it was just so lovely. And then here are some books, lots and lots of lovely books. This is my favourite book of the year. Lots and lots and lots of books. Lots of lovely, lovely books. I'm singing about books. My last review was The Terror, which, yeah, I mean, I struggled with it. It wasn't that great. Yeah, so lots and lots of lovely books. This one was great. This was like a Mulan retelling. This one's a thriller. Ski Lodge isolationist thriller of the kind that you probably like. Yeah, so it's all good. So I'm not sure I'll probably keep up with Goodreads and Storygraph at the same time for a little bit, but I've been finding Goodreads a bit annoying and Storygraph is much less annoying. So I might end up sticking with just Storygraph. And I will, so far I've put in a challenge of 120 books again. But my main challenge is to have a higher average page count this year than last year. So 320 or above on my average page count. What about you? How have your goals gone? Have you had anything you particularly enjoyed? Let me know and I will see you again soon. Bye.